Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Going to spend an hour with Bob Bailey as yours truly, Johnny Dollar. The first episode we're going to hear, of course, we'll hear the conclusion of the Lorcoe Diamond Matter in our next half hour, but right now we're going to hear the first long-form show they did after ending the the daily series, the 5-day-a-week series. So this is the first half hour, yours truly, Johnny Dollar, with Bob Bailey. This episode from November 11th, 1956, it's about a reporter. It's the Big Scoop Matter.
From Hollywood, it's time now for...
Johnny Dollar.
Joe McNabb, Northeast Indemnity, Johnny.
Oh, hi, Joe. What's up?
At the moment, my blood pressure.
Too much work?
No. Prospect of having to pay off on a $100,000 life insurance policy.
Uh-oh.
Fella I think you know, Johnny. Art Wesley.
Oh, sure. Been a pal of mine for years. Reporter.
Yeah. Apparently he's working on a story right now that somebody doesn't want him to report.
What do you mean?
Night before last, he got beat up in an alley. Yesterday, a car made a pass at him at high speed.
What about today?
It's early yet, Johnny.
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, let's hope it's not too late.
Bob Bailey in the exciting adventures of the man with the action-packed expense account. America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. From Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to the Home Office, Northeast Indemnity Affiliates, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Big Scoop Matter. Expense account item 1, $18.40, transportation and incidentals to New York City. I called Art Wesley's paper. He wasn't in and nobody seemed to know where he was. Then I remembered a small bar called Tony's over on 3rd Avenue. I took a cab, that's item 2, $1.25, and found him in a corner booth.
Sorry, Johnny, no bodyguard. The informants I'm working with will take off fast if they spotted one. No informants, no story.
That insurance policy your paper took out on you, who's the beneficiary?
A dear departed wife, Joan.
Departed? I thought...
We split up a couple of months ago.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Art.
Yeah, we were living in two different worlds. I wanted a home and family. She wanted a trip to the moon every night.
Where is she now?
Who knows? On her way to the moon, I guess.
Hey, look, this story you're working on, Art.
It's hot, Johnny. And big, real big. A national gambling syndicate, and run by a guy right here in New York.
Who?
I'm getting close, but I'm not sure yet. When I am, then out come my articles.
What's this guy gonna do when you push him into a corner? Look, I'm worried about you.
You look, Johnny, I'm not as foolish as you think. I've got his name written down and put in a safe deposit box with what evidence I got. That's my real insurance.
Oh, Art, look, we've been friends a long time. I'm not gonna let you do this alone.
Sorry, Johnny. I gotta go it alone.
Since I'd gotten nowhere with Art, I decided to try his wife, Joan, even though they were separated. I found her in an apartment on East 68th, but she was hardly what you'd call cooperative.
Look, Mr. Dollar, so you're a friend of Art's. At the moment, I'm not.
Mrs. Wesley, your marriage with Art is none of my business. But that insurance policy his paper took out on him is. And incidentally, you're still the beneficiary.
So?
So he could be in danger, those articles he's writing.
Why doesn't he drop it?
Oh, look, you know Art better than that.
Then what am I supposed to do about it? That story is his business. How I feel about things is my business. And come to think of it, I can't see that either of those things is your business.
Item 3, $1.80 cab fare to police headquarters in the office of my old friend, Detective Lieutenant Rastelli.
Sure. I know about those attempts on Art's life. So I talked to him and got nowhere.
He told me the story's about a national gambling syndicate.
It's more than he told me.
Supposedly the big boss is here in New York. Now, what are you going to do about it?
Look, the minute Art quits thinking he's got to hit the jackpot all by himself and lets us in on it, we'll give him all the protection he... Lieutenant Rastelli. Yeah, just a minute. It's for you, Johnny.
Oh, thanks. Hello?
Art Wesley, Johnny. They told me at your hotel where to reach you.
Anything new, Art?
I'm leaving town for a few hours. This could be it, Johnny. Tonight could be the jackpot.
Well, listen, let me go with you.
Sorry, I gotta go alone. It's part of the deal.
Art, it could be a trap.
I can take care of myself. Call you when I get back. Wish me luck.
Well, look, wait. Art! Art! Item 4, $1.80 cab to Art's apartment, where I persuaded the manager to let me in. I was looking for anything that would give me a lead. Then, near the phone on a scratch pad, I found where he'd written the word Watika several times. Sure, Lake Watika, upstate. Art had a lodge there. Item 5, $25 even for a rented car. It was a 3-hour drive to Lake Watika, which was bad enough. But to top it off, it started to rain, and rain hard. When I finally got to the highway turnoff, the side road to the lake was a mass of mud. Then I got 2 quick breaks. It stopped raining, and I spotted the 6-mile road into Art's place. Half an hour further on, I saw a light. Art's car was parked at one side, and the front door of the lodge was wide open. When I got to it, I saw why. Art was lying in the doorway. Yeah. He was the one who wanted to hit the jackpot. But you can't hit the jackpot with a slug, particularly when that slug is right between your eyes. I drove to the sheriff's office and reported it. Sheriff Tompkins and his boys took over. But in the darkness and the mud, they could only make a routine check. He asked me to meet him at the lodge the next morning, so I did.
Buddy was right here in the doorway, huh, son?
Yeah, Sheriff, I didn't move it.
And Wesley probably got shot when he answered the door by somebody standing out there on the ground.
Because of that bullet hole in the roof?
Yeah. Right over that shelf that's stocked with canned goods, sugar, salt, and the like. Apparently, he used this place regular.
Yeah, he used to do some of his writing here. Were you able to determine time of death?
Coroner says between 10:30 and 11 last night. What time did you arrive?
About half an hour after the rain stopped. I'd say 11:45.
Means it was still raining a good half hour after the killing. No wonder we found no tracks.
Hey, look, Sheriff. Art was working on a hot story about a national gambling syndicate. Could be that he found out who the boss was last night, the hard way.
Oh? Then you think the killer was from out of town? Maybe New York?
Yeah. Now, where would he stay? Is there a hotel around here?
Lake Watika Inn, just outside the village, about 6 miles from here.
Sheriff, I'll check it out.
The guests here at the inn, Mr. Dollar? Well, we have only 2 who checked in yesterday. It's the off-season, of course.
Yeah, clerk, who are they?
Well, Mr. Cooper yesterday afternoon and Mr. Buckley around dark.
Uh-huh. They still here?
Mr. Cooper is sitting right out there on the terrace, but Mr. Buckley paid in advance and left quite early this morning.
I see. Did Buckley give any reason for stopping here?
He said he was a traveling man and didn't like to drive in the rain.
Okay. I'd like you to write down a description of him. I'll pick it up on the way out.
Oh, I'll be glad to, sir.
Hi.
Oh, good morning.
Enjoying the scenery?
Yes, immensely. Oh, sit down, won't you?
Sure, thanks. My name's Dollar.
Mine's Cooper. You just check in?
I'll just drop by.
I came yesterday.
Uh-huh. Pretty up here this time of year.
Yes, certainly is. I really enjoy places like this in the off-season. It's a nice change.
Too bad the weather hasn't been better, huh?
Well, the rainstorm last night? Oh, I enjoyed that, too.
You were out in it?
Oh, no. No, I enjoyed it the way a storm should be enjoyed. In front of the fireplace in my cottage with a drink and a good book. No, Mr. Dollar, I stayed in last night.
And that was that. I picked up the description of the other guest, Buckley, from the clerk and gave it to Sheriff Tompkins, who got out a bulletin on him. Then I drove back to New York City, turned in my rented car, and took a cab. That's item 6, $1.70, to Joan Wesley's apartment.
Yes. They notified me this morning about Art's death. I don't know what to say. What is there to say?
Good question, Mrs. Wesley.
If only he hadn't been so stubborn. If only he'd given up that story about the gambling syndicate or whatever it was.
Yeah. You figure somebody in the syndicate killed him?
Why, of course.
Mrs. Wesley, did you know Art had gone on up to the lodge at Lake Watika?
No. Mr. Dollar, I'm rather tired.
One more thing. Did you go out last night?
No. It was raining. I stayed here in the apartment.
All evening?
All evening.
I see. Well, thanks, Mrs. Wesley. Maybe I was imagining, but it seemed to me Joan Wesley hesitated just a little before telling me she hadn't been out of her apartment last night. And if she had gone to Lake Watika, I checked the basement garage. Her car was clean. Too clean. Item 7, $5 to the garage attendant for some very interesting information. Joan Wesley had ordered her car washed first thing this morning. Why? Because the wheels were covered with mud from last night.
Act Two of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment.
Sunday, November 11th, 1956. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, more of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, from Sunday, November 11th, 1956.
Now, Act Two of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, and the Big Scoop Matter.
I didn't leave this apartment last night.
Your car says differently, Joan.
Car?
You had it washed today because it was all muddy. And the reason it was muddy was because you had it out in the rain last night.
Look,
Another thing. You told me you didn't know Art had gone to the lodge. You hadn't heard from him. But the switchboard operator told me you had a call from him yesterday. Now, why else would he call you except to tell you where he was going? Well, how about it, Joan?
All right. Art did call me yesterday and told me he was going to Lake Watika.
And how about last night?
Yes. I went out, but not to Lake Watika.
Art wouldn't give you a divorce. By killing him, you get your freedom and $100,000.
I didn't kill Art. I didn't go up there last night.
Then where did you go?
Might as well know. The reason I wanted a divorce from Art was because I'd found someone else.
Oh?
That's where I went for a few minutes last evening.
Why did you lie about the phone call from Art yesterday?
I don't know. I was confused. I was afraid it would look bad for me if it came out that I knew Art had gone up there.
It doesn't look good for you this way, believe me.
Oh, Johnny, I'm telling the truth.
Who is this fella you're interested in?
I don't see why he
Who
has
is he?
His name is Ted Nash. Will you have to talk to him?
I sure will. And right now. But I was wrong about talking to Ted Nash right now. I called his apartment and got no answer. Item 9, $1.60 cab fare to police headquarters in the office of Detective Lieutenant Rastelli.
You figure this guy Nash and Joan Wesley could have killed Art and used the gambling syndicate threat as a cover, huh?
It's a possibility, Lieutenant.
Well, I'll see what I can find out about Nash. How'd you do at Lake Watika?
2 guests checked in the day of the killing. One, a man named Buckley. He left early this morning. Sheriff Tompkins has a bulletin out on him.
Who else?
A fellow named Cooper, who apparently likes to go places in the off-season. Nothing to tie him in particularly.
Cooper, huh? We had a rumble some time ago that a guy named Cooper was involved in that gambling syndicate.
What?
Trouble is, we got no proof.
Hey, wait a minute.
What's the matter?
Art told me he'd put the name of the man he was after in a safe deposit box. If we could find the key to that box.
How about Art's apartment?
Let's take a look. So we looked, and we found the key tucked away in a desk, but only a number on it. Nothing to tell where it was located. I gave it to Lieutenant Rastelli, and he promised to check every bank in town if necessary. While I went on back to Lake Watika to see if the man named Cooper at the inn was the same one Rastelli told me about. When I got there, after a frantic 3-hour drive, I found him comfortably sitting by the fireplace.
Well, Mr. Dollar, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Cooper, I'm going to get right to the point. You told me you came up here to enjoy the scenery.
Yes, that's right. Why?
The man who was killed last night, Art Wesley. He was trying to expose a national gambling syndicate.
Oh, that's very interesting. So?
So? I know a police detective in New York who thinks you're a member of that syndicate.
Well, now, Mr. Dollar, that's a very serious charge. I presume you have proof. Well? Uh-huh. No proof. Well, in that case, I don't think there's any...
Mr. Dollar, long-distance call for you. You can take it on that phone right beside you.
Thanks, clerk. Johnny Dollar.
Rastelli in New York, Johnny.
Hi, Lieutenant. Did you locate that?
Yeah, the safe deposit box, and in it we found the name of the man Art Wesley was closing in on. It's Cooper.
Thanks very
all right,
much.
So you...
Well, Cooper, you wanted proof? We've got it. Evidence that ties you in with the syndicate. Clerk.
Well, now, this is ridiculous,
Is it?
Dollar.
Let me tell you the facts about this thing.
Is something the matter, Mr. Dollar?
Get Sheriff Tompkins on the phone, clerk. Tell him I've got Art Wesley's killer here.
You mean Mr. Cooper?
Oh, now, wait a minute. Now, look, Dollar. If you'd get your facts straight, you'd drop this silly notion of yours.
What kind of facts, Cooper?
What time was Wesley killed?
Between 10:30 and 11 last night.
But, Mr. Dollar, Mr. Wesley's place is some 6 miles from here.
That's right. Why?
Well, then Mr. Cooper couldn't have killed him.
What do you mean?
Last night, I took a drink to Mr. Cooper's cottage here at the inn.
What time?
Around 20 to 11, and I chatted with him for at least 15 minutes.
Are you sure about that?
Oh, quite sure.
Well, Mr. Dollar, I'll buy you a drink sometime.
Cooper strolled back to the bar with a satisfied smirk on his face. So the one man who had to be Art's killer couldn't have killed him. I collared the clerk again and had him repeat his story in detail.
If you recall, it rained heavily last night, Mr. Dollar.
Yes, I drove through it on my way up here.
Well, I was making the rounds of the inn, checking windows, things like that, when the house phone rang. It was Mr. Cooper calling from his cottage. He wanted a drink.
You say that was at 20 to 11?
Yes, I always jot down the time when I am called away from the desk.
All right, go on.
Well, when I got to Mr. Cooper's cottage, he was sitting in the living room in front of the fire with a book.
Yeah.
We chatted a while, and then when I returned here to the desk, I jotted down the time again. 10:55.
Well, that does it.
What do you mean?
Oh, it's a good 20-minute drive from here to Art Wesley's lodge. If he was killed between 10:30 and 11 and Cooper was here at that time, he couldn't have done it.
Well, I'm sorry, but facts are facts. Oh, excuse me. Lake Watika Inn. Yes, just a moment. Sheriff Tompkins, Mr. Dollar.
Oh, thanks. Hi, Sheriff.
Thought you ought to know, son. Remember that man Buckley we were looking for?
Yeah, sure, the other guest at the inn.
Yeah, we picked him up. I've been questioning him for an hour.
Any luck?
No, sir. He's just a traveling salesman who stayed at the inn because he didn't want to drive in the rain.
You sure?
Buckley swears he doesn't even know Cooper. Just between you and me, Johnny, I think we got the wrong fella.
No place again. I decided to start all over. Got into my car and drove to Art Wesley's place. Nothing was changed. I remember the trip I'd made the night he was killed, how it rained heavily until about half an hour before I arrived. How I'd found him lying in the open doorway, a bullet hole in his head. Yeah, and the hole in the ceiling over the shelf of provisions, marking the path of the bullet. It was there. So were the provisions. Canned food, mustard, sugar, a package of crackers. There was some... Wait a minute. Sugar. The sugar bowl. I stared at it for a moment. I remembered a couple of things the room clerk at the inn had told me. And suddenly the whole deal slid neatly and quietly into place. I drove back to the inn fast. Cooper's cottage was empty, so I went inside to the bedroom and took a look around. Then I spotted one of the pictures on the wall, a little out of place. I looked behind it. Yeah, just what I expected. Outside, I found Cooper sitting on the terrace in front of the main building. I slid into a chair across from him.
Well, Mr. Dollar, what fantastic crime are you going to accuse me of today?
Cooper, I got a one-track mind, and it's still stuck on murder.
Oh, now look, Dollar, we've been over this before, and personally, I find it quite boring. So much so that it's interfering with my vacation here.
That's too bad.
Yes, it is. So I'm leaving this evening.
I don't think so, Cooper.
Oh, come now.
Art Wesley was trying to expose a figure in a gambling syndicate. You.
Well, that's a matter of conjecture.
You had to stop him for keeps.
Oh, now look, Dollar. The time of Art Wesley's death has been established as between 10:30 and 11 last night.
That's right, between 10:30 and 11 last night.
And I'm sure you remember the room clerk telling you he was with me in my cottage living room from 10:40 to 10:55.
I sure do.
So that I certainly couldn't have killed your friend Wesley 6 miles from here during that time.
Except that Art Wesley wasn't killed at his lodge.
What are you talking about?
You see, I remembered something else the clerk had told me. The night of the killing, it stopped raining a little after 11.
All right, what difference does that make?
All the difference in the world, believe me. Here's what really happened, Cooper.
And we'll find out what really happened from November 11th, 1956, Bob Bailey, as yours truly, Johnny Dollar, here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. The conclusion, along with the conclusion of the Lorcoe Diamond Matter, when we continue after these messages. Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, the conclusion of the Big Scoop Matter, an episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, the first of the half-hour programs, as it was originally broadcast November 11th, 1956.
You killed Art Wesley in the bedroom of your cottage here at the inn.
Oh, don't be ridiculous.
You immediately called the room clerk over and chatted with him in your living room for about 15 minutes. He didn't know there was a corpse in the next room.
Oh, really?
After he left, you took Wesley's body the 6 miles to his place and planted it in the doorway.
Oh, now look, Dollar...
Your problem was to make it look like he'd been killed there. Then you remembered. The slug that had killed him hit the wall in your bedroom. That gave you an idea. You figured out the right angle at the lodge and fired a shot upwards from the outside the door. It went through the ceiling at the back.
All right, Dollar, I've had enough of your half-baked theories with no proof whatsoever to back them up.
Correction, Cooper. This time I've got proof. There was a shelf of food under the bullet hole and a bowl of sugar directly under it.
A bowl of... So what?
When sugar gets wet, it gets crusty, and it stays that way. But the sugar in that bowl was dry. Now, if the killing was between 10:30 and 11, and it rained heavily until after 11, then some rain would have dropped through the bullet hole into the sugar.
I see.
But, Cooper, the sugar was dry. So the bullet hole was made after the time of the murder, when you planted Wesley's body there. Just a little detail, Cooper, but it nails you. That and, of course, the fact I found the slug that really killed Wesley just a couple of minutes ago.
Oh?
Buried in the wall of your bedroom behind a picture you'd moved slightly to cover it.
Well, Dollar, I may as well tell you that I saw you come out of my cottage a few minutes ago. I figured you knew. So ever since you sat down here, I've been holding a gun on you under the table.
You know, Cooper, I may as well tell you. Ever since I sat down here, I've been holding a gun on you, too.
Well, you...
Let's have it.
Well, you didn't have any gun.
A big-time gambler bluffed right out of the game. Cooper, you're slipping. Item 10, $37.50. Transportation and incidentals back to Hartford. Expense account total $187.40. Remarks? Cooper's awaiting trial. About Art Wesley? Well, I guess that sugar bowl was a dead man's revenge. And come to think of it, that revenge was pretty sweet. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Now, here's our star to tell you about next week's story.
Next week, colorful New Orleans, from nightlife in the Latin Quarter to the dismal, deadly swamps. Join us, won't you? Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, starring Bob Bailey, originates in Hollywood. Written by Robert Reif, it is produced and directed by Jack Johnstone. Heard in tonight's cast were Virginia Gregg, Russell Thorson, Barney Phillips, Stacey Harris, Larry Thor, Parley Bear, and Les Tremaine. Musical supervision is by Amerigo Marino. Be sure to join us next week, same time and station, for another exciting story of yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Dan Cubberly speaking.
November 11th, 1956, yours truly, Johnny Dollar, on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, we go back exactly 1 year to Friday, November 11th, 1955, the conclusion of the yours truly Johnny Dollar story, the Lorcoe Diamond Matter.
From Hollywood, it's time now for...
Johnny Dollar.
Johnny, this is Maria.
Maria? Well, isn't it kind of late at night to call?
You've got to help me, Johnny. I'm being followed.
Aren't you at home?
No, it's a little cafe on the waterfront. I came in here to phone.
Why the devil did you have to go out? Everything was set up. If you'd stayed home, you'd have been safe. What are you trying to do, get yourself killed?
Johnny, this is no time.
Where are you? What's the name of the place?
The Marrakesh, number 41 Rue de la Mer. I'm afraid to go outside.
No, whatever you do, don't go outside. Stay right where you are until I get there.
But Johnny,
Take your choice, Maria. It's either that or wind up on a marble slab.
What do you mean?
You know what I mean. You know better than anybody. Now stay there.
Tonight and every weekday night, Bob Bailey in the transcribed adventures of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. From Special Investigator Johnny Dollar, location Algiers, North Africa, to the Home Office Transworld Fidelity Company, Hartford, Connecticut. Assignment, the Lorcoe Diamond Matter. $100,000 in jewels stolen and a murder. Expense account continued. Item 12, $2.20, taxi fare to the waterfront of the Marrakesh Cafe. There was no time to lose and no time to get help from Inspector Marcus. A half hour earlier, he'd set a trap, and he and his men were staked out around Maria's apartment house waiting. But apparently, she'd gone to the cafe before he got there. So now the whole thing had blown wide open. The Rue de la Mer was a dead-end street close to the water, deserted at this hour of night. A couple of dim street lights and a light over the door of the Marrakesh Cafe. Everything else was in darkness. There was no movement, no sign of life.
Over here, Johnny. Oh, thank heaven you got here.
No trouble so far. Huh?
No, except with that sailor over there. He finally passed out.
Well, you're probably used to that kind of trouble. Cigarette?
Yes, thank you.
Now, what were you doing down here at this time of night?
I was visiting a friend.
Is that the friend's car parked out at the curb?
Yes.
Charlie Barrett, huh? The meat packer from Chicago who was going to give you the Lorcoe diamonds. Well, I figured he'd got over his mad spell.
How did you know about it?
He told me, just before I knocked him out for the second time tonight. He said you two had a fight over a week ago, and that he told you he wasn't buying any diamonds after all.
Well, it was just...
For a while, I thought I had you tagged again. I wondered why you hadn't canceled the order when you'd been told he wasn't going to pay for the stuff.
Johnny, it was just a talk. I knew he would come around.
Yeah, well, that's about the way I figured it. Another explanation. So I let you off the hook again.
Why, Johnny? Why have you been trying so hard?
Trying what?
To find some way of involving me in this.
Well, the facts just seemed to turn up. I wasn't trying to find them.
It made a big difference, didn't it? Learning about Mr. Barrett.
Learning what about him?
That I was accepting a $20,000 gift from him.
Why should it? Your life's your own.
It did, though. Before that, you were... Well, seemed to be interested.
Sure. You're a very beautiful woman.
And that's all it was?
What more did you want?
All right, Johnny. Forget it. I don't blame you.
Hey, tell me something. What about Barrett? Now that you've kissed and made up, is the engagement back on again?
I haven't decided yet, Johnny.
Ah. Well, come on. Let's get out of here. I'll take you home.
Do you think it's safe?
There was no sign of anybody around when I came in. Whoever it was probably got scared off.
Oh, I was scared to death. When I saw the lights of the cafe, I jammed on the brakes and ran for the door. There, the car was right behind me.
Get a look at the driver?
No.
How'd you get hold of Barrett's car? Borrow it?
He gave it to me.
Not a bad night's work. It's a good car. Get in.
You really play rough, don't you, Johnny?
Sometimes. It depends on the... Get down, quick, back of the car. Hey,
came from across the street. It's pitch black over there.
What are you going to do?
Look, Maria, you're safe as long as you're back at the car here.
What about you?
I can't get a shot from here. I'm pinned down. I'm going to make a run for that stone curb. Try to draw a shot and see where the flash comes from.
Be careful, Johnny.
Oh, don't worry, kid. I'm the carefulest guy you ever saw. All right, now sit tight. Here goes.
Are you all right, Johnny?
Yeah, I think I got him spotted. Let's see just how close I get.
There's somebody running away.
Yeah, so do I. Now, where the devil? Why don't they get some streetlights down there?
That car that's starting up.
Yeah, I see it.
They're getting away.
One lucky shot, my... Give me your keys. Wait here. I'm going after
No,
him.
no, I'm going with you.
Then pile in. Hurry up. Let's go. A few blocks away, I picked up the taillights of the other car and poured on the gas to keep hanging on. We roared through the empty streets along the waterfront, then swung into the coast road and headed out of the city. The model I was driving had been built for road racing, and barring accidents, I didn't figure the car ahead had much chance of shaking me. It was a narrow, winding road following the rocky edge of the headlands, and the curves were sharp and dangerous, especially at the speed we were traveling. Finally, it happened. The car ahead roared up a steep grade and missed the curve at the top. It rolled over and over, the headlights cutting crazy patterns in the blackness as it plunged down towards the beach. I finally braked to a stop about 30 yards from the wreck, jumped out and started toward it, and just then... the gas tank caught and burst, and the car exploded into a tower of flames. I caught a glimpse of the driver, pinned in the wreck. Then the fire took over and covered him. And I knew one thing was certain. He'd had it.
It's dying down.
Yeah. The gasoline is all burned now.
Oh, what a terrible way to die.
What way isn't?
I guess... Johnny, could I have a cigarette, please?
Yeah, sure. Here you go.
Thank you.
Yeah, light up, Maria, while you watch him burn.
What a horrible thing to say.
It's quite a relief, though, isn't it, knowing you're safe now?
Well, of course it's a relief when someone has just tried to kill you and now you know that they...
That's true, but it's not what I meant.
I don't think I understand you.
What I meant was you're safe because now he won't be able to talk.
Able to... Who won't be able? Do you mean you know who's in that car?
Of course, and so do you. It's the customs property agent, Andre Jardine.
Andre?
Sure. Who else would have any reason to kill you, since he was the only one left after... Oh, I guess you haven't heard about it yet. Bobo's dead, too.
What? Who is Bobo?
Your other partner. Andre shot him in the back earlier tonight up in the Casbah. So you're doubly safe now, Maria. They're both dead. And for everything else, you've got an explanation. With just one exception.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Oh, now, don't be modest. Actually, it was quite a scheme, whether you thought it up or Andre
Oh,
did.
you are out of your mind.
The idea was to make sure the diamond courier died, either on the plane or at least before he got through customs. That way, the courier's briefcase would be sent to Andre's office. Then Bobo was to help Andre fake the stick-up. But Bobo turned out to be a tough cookie.
This may be true,
Instead
but
of sticking to plan, he decided to go for broke. When he slugged Andre, he tried to make it stick, but Andre managed to reach his gun, so he ended up in the hospital instead of the morgue.
What has all this got to do with me?
Then Andre got the idea of a double cross. He left the hospital, went into the Casbah to look for Bobo. He found him, and he killed him.
I still don't see
His
what...
next step was a natural, to knock you off and keep the whole take for himself. We expected it, and we were ready for him. Inspector Marcus is staked out right now at your apartment house, waiting for Andre to show up. We didn't know you'd already gone out earlier.
Well, all of this may be true, Johnny. But why do you insist on trying to fit me into the picture?
Because that's where you belong. I mentioned the fact that you'd been able to come up with an explanation every time you needed it, with just one exception.
What exception?
Both Andre and Bobo have tried to kill you this evening. Why? Unless you were in on this thing. What reason would they have?
Well, I don't know. Of course. Why should I know? I don't know why they tried to kill me, Johnny.
Oh, a good answer, Maria. And it'll probably work. Yeah, you figured that one out fast.
I don't know what you mean.
No, caution. Well,
Who has the diamonds?
I will before morning.
Johnny, why couldn't you...
Knock it off, kid. You got the wrong guy. It won't work with me.
It could.
Sure, I know. You're beautiful, charming, lovely. And you're rotten. Rotten right to the core.
What are you doing, Johnny?
Going back to town.
Well, wait for me.
Goodbye, Maria.
Johnny, wait! Johnny!
An hour later, I was out at the air terminal in the Customs Property Office watching Inspector Marcus open a vault.
Mon Dieu, what a nuisance. Always they make these combinations so difficult.
That's the general idea, Inspector.
True, but still one would think that... there we are. And now, if you are correct, Monsieur Dollar, we shall soon have our hands...
There, that briefcase in the corner.
Mais oui. It is the one.
Good. Let's have a look at it.
It will be necessary to force the lock.
Here, pry it open with this. Looks like an easy one.
It is merely a matter of... Voila. Ooh, beautiful, no?
Yeah. Too beautiful.
Tell me something, Monsieur Dollar. What made you know that Andre Jourdain was guilty?
Something Bobo said just before he died. Yeah. He confessed he was the man who had slugged Andre. But Andre had described his assailant as tall and thin. Bobo was short with a stocky build. Andre had lied.
And all this time, the diamonds were right here in this vault to which Andre, as property agent, had access.
Can you think of a safer place? Hey, Inspector, what about Maria D'Attolia?
Well, I am inclined to agree with you, Monsieur Dollar, but, well...
Yeah, I know. Nothing but suspicion.
Yeah, precisely. If I were to file charges and bring her to trial on such evidence as this, well, she would cry a little, perhaps, and look very beautiful. And, monsieur, the court would hang me, not her.
Yeah, you're right. You could never make it stick.
C'est la vie.
Expense account item 13, $624.80. Hotel, meals, and incidentals in Algiers and transportation back to the States. Expense account total, $1,214.60. End of expense account. End of report. Remarks? Social item. To be circulated widely. The Countess Maria D'Attolia was married yesterday to C.K. Barrett, a big tycoon in the meat business. The happy couple will make their home in Chicago. All companies in that area who may be asked to underwrite insurance on the life of C.K. Barrett, don't. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Remember, there'll be a new exciting story on Johnny Dollar beginning next Monday.
Next week, the Broderick matter, an exciting chase after a charming, beautiful girl. After all, who wouldn't? Join us, won't you? Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, starring Bob Bailey, is transcribed in Hollywood. Written by Les Crutchfield, it is produced and directed by Jack Johnstone. Heard in this week's cast were Lillian Baeff, Jack Moyles, Victor Perrin, C.K. Barrett, Lawrence Dobkin, Forrest Lewis, and Jay Novello. Musical supervision by Amerigo Marino. Be sure to join us on Monday night, same time and station, for another exciting story of Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Roy Rowan speaking.
there you have it. November 11th, 1955. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Would you thank this station, support their advertisers? It is their kindness and courtesy that allows us to be with you each and every time we roll around here on your favorite station. Now, if you miss a day, you don't... Oh, by the way, I want to remind you about our friend Ted over at RadioMemories.com. Ted has assembled a whole new set of restorations. Contact him at RadioMemories.com. He supplies shows on cassette, CD, or on flash drive for your computer. It's RadioMemories.com. Check out Ted, would you please? Now, if you miss a day, you don't have to miss a show. Stay in touch with us here by going to my webpage, classicradio.stream. That's classicradio.stream. You can stream our shows. You can learn more about classic radio collecting. You can find lists of places where you can download our shows from, the podcast versions. You can also learn a lot more by going there, just simply because we want you to know what we have going on. Our social media links are there, and you can contact me, and you can also buy me a coffee. The Buy Me a Coffee money goes to grow Classic Radio Theater. So we hope you will check that out. Classicradio.stream. Classicradio.stream. Thanks for tuning in. Please tell all your friends the great radio shows are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station.